moved the meeting from yesterday to today, but all is good. I'm pretty sure that we are in for a very interesting session. Security today is probably one of the most important aspects of any digital transformation effort or any technology deployment. Now, one of the way for us to keep our systems secure is to be able to clearly identify who is accessing and what access levels that they have. And from that point of view, I think, and especially when we have a very hybrid landscape and we are moving into more and more complex and complicated landscape with many different technologies deployed within each one of our walls. So it becomes very important to not only be able to secure your systems, but also to be able to do so in a very productive manner, as much as possible automated and as much as possible secure, right? So today, that's the topic that we're going to cover. We have Rohit Jaipuria from SAP. He'll talk to us about how SAP can actually help customers to kind of, not only keep your systems and access secure, but also to do it productively and effectively. So without further ado, Rohit, over to you.
Sure. Thank you so much, Mukesh, for setting the context and for the introduction. I'll just add a little bit more about myself. Right. My name is Rohit Jaipuria. I'm from SAP, as Mukesh said. Right. So I am part of the customer solution advisory team, and my primary focus area is around the GRC set of solutions. By GRC, for those of you who are new to this, it essentially stands for governance, risk management, and compliance, right? And as Mukesh said, becomes increasingly important, right? As you know, as people move to the cloud, there are a lot of SAP branded cloud apps as well, right? So we did some acquisitions in the past, right? So how do we go about, managing access to all of these different applications which are there? Some of you might even be aware of our access control offering. You might be using, some of you might be using those as well, right? So we have got additional capability with a purely SaaS offering, right? It's essentially based on the BTP or the business technology platform. So keeping in line with SAP's strategy of keeping the core clean, right? The business technology platform essentially becomes the go-to framework for anything and everything which is beyond your core S4 HANA environment, right? So a lot of customizations, etc., they are all done on top of business technology platform. So similarly, a lot of the GRC set of offerings also, we have got similar offerings that we had as far as on-prem set of offerings are concerned. We are also extending the reach of our GRC set of offerings, right? So today I'm essentially going to be talking about one of those offerings. So since access control is something that most of the existing customers and even the new deals that we keep on doing. So whether you're moving to a hyperscaler from say an on-prem deployment, or if you're moving to S4 HANA public cloud as well, right? How do we go about managing access? How do we go about managing segregation of duties, etc., is what we're essentially going to be talking about, right? So what I'm going to do is what you see over here, that's essentially in terms of the agenda that we have for today. We have this offering, it's called SAP Cloud Identity Access Governance, right? There are two ways we can use this particular offering, right? So if you are an existing access control customer, for example, right, we can deploy it as an integration. I'll come to all of this going forward, right, in terms of what is the kind of capabilities that you get. Or, I mean, if you are on S4 HANA public cloud, or if you're not an existing access control customer, then you can use this particular offering for your full-fledged segregation of duties and user access management piece as well. So let me move to what we have as far as the entire GRC and security portfolio is concerned, right? So I'll start with the first pillar, that is essentially enterprise risk and compliance, right? So there, we can help you to streamline certain concepts like the 3 lines of defense, for example. So as part of the first line, we include, say, the SAP process control, which is essentially your controls and compliance mechanism. So that's where you have all of your controls. These might be from the perspective of, for example, the regulatory compliance. So if you have got Saban SOX related requirements, or if you have got the IFC framework or the internal financial controls as mandated by the Companies Act as well, right? We can help you to streamline all of those controls. This is where you have all of your RCMs as well, so your risk and control matrix, and we can see how frequently we execute these controls, how are exceptions generated, etc., etc. Moving on to the second line, which is typically the CRO's office or the Chief Risk Officer's office. So an enterprise-wide risk management solution is the next solution that we have within that portfolio. And of course, we can help you streamline your entire internal audit function as well, right? So in terms of how do you go about designing the entire audit universe, what are the areas that you will audit, at what frequencies, how long will these audits last, how many people will be there as part of the auditors, auditees, including a single place wherein you can keep on uploading all of your audit findings and your audit working papers and all as well. So that's how we enable the third line of defense as well. Plus, of course, from financial compliance management perspective, that is again a completely SaaS-based offering built on top of the business technology platform, right? So this is a younger solution in comparison, and going forward, this will have the capabilities of process control and of risk management as well. And then, of course, we have got the fraud detection mechanism, which is SAP Business Integrity Screening. So that's one of the primary pillars as far as your entire GRC journey is concerned, right? All of these are individually licensed solutions. So depending upon the kind of roadmap that you have and the kind of the kind of priorities you have, we can pick and choose from these and have you go on your journey. But more on that later. In case any of these areas of interest, please feel free to reach out, and we can schedule one-on-one sessions along these areas as well. Moving on to the core focus area for today's discussion, that's mainly in terms of the identity and access governance. For those of you who have been on the SAP ERP, be it ECC, be it S/4HANA as well, I don't think access control will be new to you. That is our legacy on-premise application, which is now there on the RISE PCE as well, right? So that's essentially the private cloud that we are talking about. So if you are moving to the hyperscaler, right, through the RISE mechanism, or if you are a net new customer as well, right, along with S/4HANA, you would probably have gone ahead with access control, right? So we have a very large user base as far as access control is concerned. The sister application in a way, and that also extends the capability, is the SAP Cloud Identity Access Governance, which is what you see as the second offering that we're talking about over here. Now, this has a unique value proposition. Many a time what we encounter on the field is that people do have access control, which essentially caters to either their ECC or their S/4HANA setup, but they might have also subscribed to some of the SAP branded cloud applications as well. For example, you could have success factors for HR, you could have Ariba for procurement, you could have, say, Concur for travel and expense management, or you could have the business technology platform as well. You might also be using the SAP Analytics Cloud offering, which is built on top of the BTP again, right? So we were getting these questions from the field saying, okay, with access control, we are able to handle the entire user access management, segregation of duties, etc., right? As far as our core ECC or S4 is concerned, but what happens, when we have got these other SAP branded cloud applications as well? So with that perspective, to be able to address those requirements, we have got SAP Cloud Identity Access Governance. As I said, you can either use it as a combination with access control. So in that case, it works like a connector to these other SAP branded cloud applications. We'll come to some of the feature functionality in some time as we go forward, right? Or of course, you can be fully on identity access governance as well. Now, going forward, SAP does intend that in a few years, in sync with the strategy to keep the clean core in place, the GRC, the GRC set of requirements that people have within their environments would move at some point in time to the public cloud as well. But there's no real tearing hurry to be able to do that, right? So we can take some time, of course, to be able to do that. But that's the strategic way, going forward. Now, along with cloud identity access governance, we also bundle some of the other offerings. So these two other offerings that you see, SAP Cloud Identity Services, which is identity authentication and identity provisioning. These again are the BTP or the business technology platform offerings, right? And they are bundled along with cloud identity access governance. They essentially help you do things like single sign-on mechanisms. They help you put in place a multi-factor authentication if you would like, right? And also doing the integrated provisioning. Now, for the on-premise landscapes, SAP Access Control could do the provisioning to your core ERP systems, be they ECC or S/4HANA. But with identity provisioning coming in, we can take care of the provisioning and deprovisioning scenarios to other SAP branded cloud applications, such as, for example, SuccessFactors, Ariba, Concur, Fieldglass, BTP, etc., as I was talking about, right? And technically, you can extend it to non-SAP systems as well, which is where we have our partner. This was earlier called Greenlight, but now called Pathlock. They help us with these connectors to non-SAP systems. They have ready-made connectors for some of the more popular offerings as well. So things like PeopleSoft, etc. All of those connectors are out of box. So if you have certain entities which are running those, right, we can explore that as well. But those are not really the core areas for today's discussion. We are essentially going to be talking about cloud identity access governance and how it can help you do the entire user access management piece, right? So without further ado, let me move ahead. As I was saying, there are two ways we can use this particular service which is there, right? So you have the integration edition, which is, as I've put in over here. So extend access governance to the SAP branded cloud applications, and these are integrated with access control. So what is the role that access control plays, and what is the role that IAG will play? I have a slide on that going forward, so I will present that as well. Plus, if you would like to use the enterprise edition, if you are not really an access control user currently, or if you would like to move to the business technology platform for all of your access governance, you can do that as well. Now, to begin with, let's see what the integration edition, right, brings to the table. What are the points of integration, and how does it help your overall user access management scenario? So when you talk about the integration edition, right, we are essentially talking about complementing your access control deployment, which you might have already. So, you might be running on-premise, you might already have moved to RISE, or you might be in the process of moving to RISE. Essentially, RISE is the private cloud environment, right? Wherein, you're running these applications on a hyperscaler. So, hyperscalers of choice. We have got arrangements, with all the hyperscalers out there. So be it GCP, be it AWS, etc., etc., right? So with your core access control, you could do, your on-premise or your RISE mechanism. So in terms of your access analysis, in terms of role design, to ensure that your roles are clean of any kind of segregation of duties violations. You could do that with access control, even in terms of the workflow based end-to-end user access management, right? So say when a person joins the organization, uh, what are the roles that should be assigned to that particular person, right? Across different systems. You could do that. The system would do an access risk analysis. If any kind of SOD violations are encountered in the request, right, then the system can automatically trigger an exception workflow as well. It will send it out to all the right people who should ideally be authorizing that particular request, and they can put in place mitigation plans. Once approved, the backend provisioning also is taken care of by access control. And of course, you can do the emergency access management as well. So people call it by different names, of course. It can be EAM or emergency access management. It can be PAM or privileged access management. Essentially, we are talking about the firefighter mechanism over here. So these are all the short-lived accesses, which could be as less as a day as well. So maybe during the period end, etc. You want to give certain accesses, or maybe if somebody is going on leave, right? You might want to give a short-lived access. So all of that gets addressed by your access control, but access control is purpose built to be able to cater to your ERP landscape, right? So your S/4HANA landscape or your ECC landscape. Now, as I was saying, we are increasingly having customers adopt to a lot of the SAP branded cloud applications as well, right? And to be able to extend this particular capability to the cloud apps, like for example, Ariba Field Class, etc. Right? We can use identity access governance as a bridge or as a connector. So essentially what happens is access control outsources this job to cloud identity access governance, and you can do your access analysis, you can do your role design, and your entire workflow based access request management piece as well. Of course, it is natively integrated with the SAP Cloud Platform identity authentication and provisioning. So that's the service which takes care of the provisioning and deprovisioning as well. So as at times the entire software landscape gets more complex. For example, right, we are able to cater to the entire set of applications which are there, right? So from the end user perspective, nothing changes. They still have the same set of user interfaces which are there. Access control and IAG work together in the backend, and for the end user, actually nothing changes, right? So we are also increasingly coming across situations wherein people say that our customers are interested in doing, say, an HR trigger based authorization and provisioning and deprovisioning as well to the backend systems. So let's say when a person joins the organization, what are the roles across a heterogeneous landscape, right? So you might have S/4HANA, you might have Ariba, etc., so on and so forth. So how do you do that? When a person gets transferred, or when a person gets promoted, or when a person leaves the organization, for example, right? So then, if you have got entitlements which should change the moment a person, moves across the organization, or, moves out of the organization. So the system should be able to consume this particular event-based trigger, which is there, and do the provisioning and deprovisioning accordingly. So, all of those kind of scenarios is something that we can now address with access control and with IAG as well coming into play. So if you're using it as an integration or as a bridge between access control and some of these other applications that you have, what is it that IAG does? Or rather, before we get into that, how does the user interface, or how does the process work? So when you're talking about, say, an employee joining the organization, right? So there are certain roles that you do access, that you do want to be able to provision to these users, right? So all of this gets done within your access control layer. So once a request has been submitted into the system, it can go to multiple approvers as well, obviously. If there's any kind of remediation, any kind of mitigation plans which need to be put in place, you can do that as well. The people can do the risk analysis. For cloud applications, access control will automatically call cloud identity access governance in the backend, and you can do your entire access risk analysis around the other SAP branded cloud apps as well. Once the approvals have been obtained, right? So that's a two-way interchange of data that happens, right? Once the approvals have been obtained, right? Then we can go ahead and do the provisioning as well. So via the identity provisioning service or via access control, right? So that's essentially how the entire setup works. For an existing access control user, for example, nothing changes, right? So in terms of adoption, it becomes that much easier. So that's how a typical process would work. Of course, I've made it very simple. There can be various other nitty-gritties and intricacies as far as this entire process is concerned. Having said that, right? So what is it that your cloud identity access governance will do? Essentially, we are talking about being able to do the access analysis. So since we have got a cross-system SOD analysis or a segregation of duties analysis, which can which can be required, right? So access control outsources this job to cloud IAG. IAG has the pre-built rule set for many other applications as well, which I'll present to you shortly. So the access analysis gets outsourced to IAG, and the entire cross-system risk analysis happens at your IAG level. The other area is in terms of the workflow-based access request as well, right? So the front ends, for example, can get replaced by IAG going forward, right? So the look and feel is almost identical to what you have as part as access control is concerned. So we do that. Now, this is a scenario wherein you already have access control and you are using the IAG bridge concept to be able to extend the capability or the functionality to these other SAP branded cloud applications, right? So let's look at a bit more detail into what this is all about, right? So when you're talking about access analysis, of course, we are talking about being able to leverage the pre-built rule set, which you have in access control for S/4HANA and for ECC, but over here there are the rule set exists for these other applications as well. I've got an exhaustive list on the subsequent slide, so I'll put that up shortly. And then of course you can also have an access refinement workbench. So on the fly you can do simulations as well. So a person who for example an existing employee, they already have certain authorizations, certain entitlements, and if any additional request is placed, so then the system will do your access risk analysis, right? And on a dashboard you can add or remove certain rules which are there, and then run your access risk analysis again. So this is something that is better than you had with core access control. So we have made it more approver and user friendly, right? So I'll show you that on a slide going forward as well. Apart from that, the other things, of course, are similar to access control. So for access control users, you'll not really find much of difference in that, right? Now, coming to in terms of how do people typically go about managing the entire user access, right? So you will have pre-built analytics, you have got pre-built reports which are shipped out of the box. You can do the analysis at certain users or user groups, function wise, individual user wise, etc. If there's any kind of refinement which is required, you can do that on a dashboard itself. And apart from that, if there are any kind of segregation of duties, risks which the system points out, if required, you can also put in place mitigation plans. Let me give you an example over here. So let's say the call of the business is such that let's say you got a small branch office wherein you just have a commercial officer, and by design you need to be able to give the authorization to be able to raise purchase orders and to approve and release those purchase orders as well, for example, right? So you're not going to recruit hordes of people just so that you are clear of segregation of duties scenarios. So what you can do is you can put in place mitigation plans. The mitigation plan could be that the branch manager at that branch office says, okay, fine, on a monthly basis, I'll go through all the purchase orders which have been raised by this particular person and I'll physically verify them, right? So that can be a mitigation plan which is there in place. So people can assign these kind of mitigation plans as well when they receive a request wherein, for example, you have got certain violations. You can, of course, have all of your audit trails and all also being there. So, who approved it, when, what was the kind of mitigation uh, plan that was assigned to this particular request, and then of course you can go ahead and approve and the system will do the provisioning as well. So that's a typical workflow that happens when you're talking about user access management. Now coming to I had initially called out that we have got the pre-built segregation of duties rule set for SAP branded cloud applications. So what we do have it currently, we do have for Ariba, for SuccessFactors, ECC, S4HANA, including S4HANA public cloud as well. So these rule sets are available out of the box. Like in the case of access control, they are completely modifiable and extendable as well. So if you have done any kind of customizations to your core systems, for example, the rule set can be accordingly modified as well. And when we are talking about provisioning, of course, since we're talking about a complete browser-based environment over here, right? Many of these are completely browser-based with zero footprint on client machines, right? These front ends are all SAML 2.0 compliant as well. So we can do the provisioning for all of these applications as well. And this is something that, that's an evolving list. So if there's anything missing on the list, which you already have, for example, right? We could explore that as well. So you will appreciate that we don't have a rule set just for S4 HANA or for ECC anymore, but the SOD rule set which are extremely detailed for these other SAP branded cloud applications as well. And these are the rule sets that we leverage for doing all of your SOD and risk analysis as well. Having said that, when we are talking about the workflow-based mechanism for the end-to-end user access management, that's another thing that your integration edition can cater to. So that's how the cloud identity access governance complements and extends your access control functionality to other cloud applications. Now, I said earlier that you can also use your IAG for the full-fledged user access management piece as well. So including role design, including things like periodic certifications, and also being able to do your emergency access management. So you could very well utilize IAG for the full mechanism. So if you already have access control, maybe you could move to it. If you don't have access control, we could start with IAG itself, right? Without really having to use access control, which only caters to your ERP environment. Now, when I talk about the capabilities, so these are identical across across your access control as well as across your IAG. So if you're moving to IAG, or if you are a new customer, you will be able to get all the benefits, all the feature functionalities that you have with access control as well. So that includes your access analysis, your role design, because many a time we encounter situations wherein a role that has been designed right for your business applications, they inherently have some kind of segregation of duties violations. So if that is the case, then whoever this role gets granted to, right, will obviously have those violations creeping onto him or her as well. So we help you ensure that the rules that you are designing, the authorizations which are contained inside the rules, right, the rules by themselves are intrinsically clean of any kind of SOD violation situations, right? So that's how you can do the role design, the entire workflow based mechanism for your access request. So being able to, being able to place access requests by multiple methods, right? So you can of course have a form wherein people place these requests, or you can do it for somebody else as part of the team as well, for a new joinee, or if there are any extra authorizations which are required, you can do that as well. uh, these could come in by way of the HR based event triggers as well that I was talking about. So if an employee moves within the organization, and if you are changing the position, for example within success factors, then your IAG can consume that trigger and take care of the entire user access management authorization, as well as say the removal of some of the accesses which might not be warranted, which might not be required anymore. So that's the entire workflow based mechanism, the periodic certification, as well as the privileged access management. All of these capabilities are available out of the box for your cloud identity access governance as well. So should you choose to go ahead with that particular version, you can enjoy all of these benefits, right? So maybe I'll just put up a slide on each of these areas, right? So I was talking about the pre-built rule set, of course, which is there, right? So this is there for IAG as well as for access control. So conveniently broken down into different risks. So say, for example, you have a situation wherein a single employee has requested access, wherein he or she can do vendor creation, or a vendor management and release payments. That is a clear SOD violation. So we functionally call it as a risk. So there is a risk of creation of fictitious vendor and releasing payments. So when this particular request comes to the approvers, right? So they are aware of what is the request that has come to them, and if required, they can fine tune the request, so they can remove some of the authorizations which are being asked for, or put in place mitigation plans, approve or reject them, etc., etc. Earlier, in the absence of, say, access control or IAG, people would just probably get an email saying that, okay, this particular T code has been requested for. And the approver has no idea, that if they approve this, what is the kind of, scenario, or what is the kind of SOD violation that they are exposing the organization to. So with this, we give you a logical English description of what these risks are. In the backend, of course, we go, if I were to talk about S4, you would go right down to, say, for example, individual functions. You would go down to T codes, authorizations, objects, and even the permission levels within that. So for example, if somebody is authorized to make vendor payments, and he or she can also view vendor bank account details, that is not a violation. But if they can edit or modify it, right, then it is an SOD violation. So we go down to that level of detail. This is available for your access control or your IAG engine as well. So that's the pre-built rule set which is there. And of course, we do understand that, especially for existing customers, it's a journey, right? So you cannot just have this objective in mind, that okay, I will just uh, subscribe to IAG, for example, and I'll be clean of SODs, right? So that's not really the way it works. So when you subscribe to the service, the first thing that you typically do is you will see, okay, in terms of my existing authorizations, how many users, say, for example, by function, have got, what all authorizations are there, how many of them have got violations, and then you can pick and choose in terms of how you go about cleaning them up, right? So, there are various kinds of reports which are available out of the box. These are all theory-based reports. So, you can see that, maybe quarter on quarter, maybe year on year, how, how your SOD cleanup is progressing, and you can see how effective they have been going forward, right, as well. So we give you a lot of reporting which is right out of the box. uh, what you can also do is In terms of when I was talking about the access refinement, for example, right? So there is a slightly different screen that you than what you get with your core access control. So over here, right at the top, it shows you, okay, who is the user, how many risks are there, and how many, we have got critical access risks. How many are the comparatively simpler SOD risks as well? So you can do things like risk scoring, and you can do the prioritization and all as well. And then the approver can do these simulations on the fly and then go ahead and approve. Or you also see a remediate button over here. They can go and remediate it, put in place mitigation plans, and you'll be able to see how clean, for example, your entire system is, right? So you have got your S/4HANA system. This could be across access factors and all as well. So across the system, across different business applications is what you'll be able to do. So make sure that the core objective of the system is, of course, people should have the minimum amount of authorizations which are required for them to be able to discharge their duties in a proper manner. So don't give extra authorizations than are absolutely necessary. So we help you to put in place that mechanism in place, right? And of course, in terms of mitigation plans, mitigation controls, people can put them right on top of the screen, when an access request comes to them for approvals as well. So you can do that at that stage, right? What you can also do is, in terms of any kind of optimization which is required. So as I was saying, if you have got extra authorizations which are there in place, you can very well do away with those as well, and make sure that the people are as clean of segregation of duties violations as possible, right? Role design again. So we also have a cluster analysis. Many a time, what we encounter with our customers is that, so maybe they have got 1000 SAP users, but they have got 2500 roles, right? So there are far more roles, which is not really an ideal situation, right? Of course, even if you're using just single roles which have all the org assignments as well, you probably have about 1000, maybe 1200 kind of roles, right? But if you're using, say, the master and derived role kind of concept, then obviously the number of roles should be far fewer. So we give you a graphical interface wherein you can see, okay, what are the roles which are there, how many of them have been assigned, how many roles, for example, they have not been assigned to anybody at all. So you can clean up the unused or the unwarranted, unrequired roles and all as well. So that'll help you again to keep the system as clean and as tight as possible. So you can do all of that with IAG. Of course, in terms of organizational requirements, essentially, the objective is never to stop the way business is being done, but rather, to be able to control the accesses that you have in place. User level reconciliations, obviously, you can do all of that. And when you're talking about different roles, so do the role mining, look at what are the privileges, authorizations, etc. What is the usage activity as well? So there are roles which haven't been used at all, which have been assigned, right? So maybe you can do away with those. So if say a particular user has been assigned a role but hasn't really used that for quite some time, you can probably do away with that. Optimize the access, refine the access, ongoing activity, do that, and then accordingly take care of the provisioning as well. So you can do all of those kind of things with the system itself. In the interest of time, maybe I'll skip some of these slides. That's in terms of how how a user can go about requesting for access across a heterogeneous landscape, right? So of course, the entire audit trail is all is all present right out of the system. So you can do all of that. And of course, this is a repetition, but the objective was to just to bring to your attention that irrespective of whether you're using the integration edition with access control or if you're using the full-fledged edition, all of these capabilities are right there for you. Right, on on say on the process front, right? So whenever a person needs to request for any kind of a role, any kind of processes, for example, right? uh, you can check the status. If any kind of adjustment is required, you can cancel the request as well. So that's as far as the user level activities is concerned. And as far as the workflow is concerned, so you just submit it to the approver. The system does the risk analysis. If any kind of remediation is required, they do that. Any kind of adjustments can be done by the approver also. Once approved, then the automated provisioning to your on-premise as well as your cloud applications takes place. So all of this is is automated. There is a lot of manual intervention which you can greatly reduce, or if possible even completely eliminate, right? Going ahead with these set of solutions that we're talking about. Then of course the periodic review or the certification of existing authorizations, right? So you might want to send out, say, a list of all the employees to a function head, and what are the accesses which they have, how many users have got access violations as well. Maybe some of these were initially supposed to be granted for a short while, but the earlier assignments have not been revoked. So you can keep on fine tuning the access, right? So you are as clean of segregation of duties violations as possible. That's the basic objective which is there with putting in place your IAG or access control plus IAG mechanism. Privileged access management, again, as I was saying, short-lived accesses like firefighters, for example. The way the system handles them is different, because there's a lot of logging, which the system automatically activates the moment a person logs in as say a super user or as a firefighter. So you can visit all of those logs just to ensure that nothing untoward has happened. So there is an approval workflow even for the super user or the firefighter access. What you can do is you can make sure that the people who should have visibility into these sessions, they have all the visibility. So okay, when did this user log in, from which terminal, and what are the different processes that they executed, for example. And there is complete log based reports as well, which are all out of the box, right? So that's something that you can do. Obviously, we give you a lot of reporting capability, which is there right out of the box as well, right? So you can very well do that. So that's essentially what we had for you today. What are some of the benefits that you can look forward to? IAG is of course completely a cloud-based offering, right? So there's no installation, configuration, etc. There will still be a bit of configuration which would be required, but in terms of the entire download of software, make sure that you keep it updated with the latest patches, etc., etc. All of that is something that SAP takes care of. So there's there's nothing that gets installed on say the user machines either, right? And in terms of the views, in terms of reports, etc., completely configurable. So in terms of adoption, we have seen that it can actually really have very few challenges on the adoption front as well, right? Application security and compliance, obviously. So segregation of duties is of course one of the first things that even an external auditor checks for. So if you are on top of the game as far as managing your entire access is concerned and authorizations are concerned, that is something that is not only important from an auditor's perspective, but also from your own internal protection of your SAP environment perspective as well. And of course, we give you a central management mechanism across a hybrid landscape, right? So, you will have S4, you might have Ariba Success Factors, Fieldglass, etc., right? So, you get a single view of all the access as well as any kind of segregation or duties conflicts which are there. Of course, these benefits are afforded by certain capabilities which the solution has. We saw a lot of them in a fair amount of detail. Uh, this is based on the business technology platform, as I was saying, right? We give you, a complete set of Fiori pre-built tiles as well. Of course, you can go over creating your own as well. So we fit right in as far as your entire user experience is concerned. So all the screens and all, for example, they are all the same, from say a S4HANA perspective, IAG perspective, etc. They are all the same. Plus, as we saw, IAG provides you support for the SAP branded cloud applications as well. So that's essentially what we had for you today. You can probably do a quick demo as well. So this is how we launch into the application. What I'll do is I'll just focus on some of the more important slides. I see we are already at 11:52. Just have a few minutes left. So you can do various kinds of risk analysis and all as well. As I was saying, you can also do the scoring as far as risks are concerned, so that you can focus on the most important ones, right? So the system will automatically calculate a risk score as well. What are the different business processes, right? By the risks and all as well. So we give you all of these kind of reports right out of the box. And if I were to look at, say, a particular user, right? So let's say we have got Beatrice Rosie, for example, and we know that there are 4 risks in terms of the authorizations which he's already got. So I'll just click on this particular area over there, and I know that okay, there are 4 risks, 3 SOD risks, and 1 critical access risk as well. And over here, you can see that I get a single view. So around success factors, Ariba, around S4HANA as well, right? So you might have entities which are, say, for example, on public cloud. You might have entities which are on RISE PCE or running S4HANA on-prem as well. So we see that, okay, we have got so many risks. As an approver, you can remediate it right over here. So if you were to remediate it, you can give it a tag and you can say, okay, fine, I'm aware of these risks, but this is what I'll do. I'll maybe do some kind of simulations as well. So in terms of the refinement of user access, I've just got these radio buttons over here. So if, say, for example, 5 roles have been requested for, maybe I can do away with some of the rules which I feel may not be important or may not be very relevant from the kind of the kind of functions that you should ideally be performing, right? So I can do this right over here. I can save this. I can run my access risk analysis again, and depending on the authorizations, what I can also see is, okay, fine, what I should include, what I should exclude. And then, in terms of any kind of controls I need to put in place, I can do that as well. And then I can try and ensure, that individual users are as clean of SOD violations as possible, right? So that's what we had for you today. More than happy to take up any questions. I see there's something on the chat as well. Let me go there. Okay. Okay, so I think Mukesh has put some.
I'm sorry. So,
Hi.
any questions? Can you hear me?
Yes, Mukesh, we can hear you.
Yeah. So, thanks, Rohit, for sharing all of this. Just wanted to check if anyone has any questions or comments that you want to bring up now. It can be either on the presentation that you just saw or in terms of access and governance in general. If you want to share what you are doing from an access and governance point of view, you can do that as well, so that we can also learn from what you are doing if you're not using this.
Absolutely.
Anyone? Dharmendra ji, do you want to share what you are doing from a access point of view? Single sign-on, do you use a third-party product or SAP? Okay. Looks like no one is in sharing mood today. No one having question can only mean two things. Either everyone has understood everything that you presented, in which case you've done a brilliant job, Rohit, or there is questions, but people are reluctant to ask. So Rohit, can you just put your contact information on the chat? So if anyone wants to reach out to you, they can reach out to you one-on-one as well.
Yes, absolutely. Let me do that.
And no, I would encourage the team members who have joined today to circulate the recording to your subordinates, whoever is in the information access control field. They could always go through this recording. Okay, feel free to go through. Feel free to share it, so that the knowledge is spread across.
Yeah, perfect. So if there are no further questions, then thank you so much for all your time. We'll see you next month. The topic will be around cybersecurity, which is even more critical, which is to kind of safeguard all your investments, and not only all your investments, but also all the data that you have. From a security point of view, from a compliance point of view, it is becoming more and more critical. In terms of so please do join next month again. Until then, thank you so much. Please
Thank you, Mukesh.
have a
Thank
good
you,
day.
Rohit. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Sri. Thanks,
Thank you so
Rohit.
much.
Thank you, Mukesh and team.
Bye-bye.
Bye.